Hi, Bonita. Hi, Elaine.
Hi there.
Hey.
And you're all very welcome today to Aware's information session on our Relatives and Friends program. My name is Leah O'Brien, and I'm the Education Manager at Aware. We're joined today by Bonita Dennison, who is our mental health trainer at Aware. And we're also joined by Elaine, who is a past participant of the Relatives and Friends program. So Elaine herself took part in our life skills program and then subsequently went on to take part in the Relatives and Friends program as it was relevant to her life. And Elaine will talk through a little bit further about that later on. So you're both very welcome today. I'm just going to share some slides. Bear with me on the Relatives and Friends program. So the Relatives and Friends program was designed in-house by Aware's clinical team. So the aim of the program is to provide a deeper understanding of the impact of depression and bipolar. And we also hope that we can identify helpful options and actions for relatives and friends that are available to them and their loved ones. And really at the end of the program, our hope is that, as a relative and a friend of somebody who may be experiencing depression, bipolar, anxiety, that you're going to walk away from the program with effective communication skills, supportive communication skills, some new coping mechanisms, and the ability to recognize the importance of self-care for yourself. So I'm going to run through a little bit of the logistics of the program first, and then Bonita, you may come in and talk about, what to expect week on week.
Sure.
So the program runs over 4 weeks. It's 90-minute sessions. It's based on, or should I say, it includes the principles of CBT, so cognitive behavioral therapy. And we run this program both virtually and in person. So the virtual programs are run over Zoom, and the in-person programs are currently they are open for registration, and the only in-person program that we have currently is in Dublin. A lot of that is a byproduct of COVID, that we saw that most people taking part in these programs now, the demand is for for the virtual programs. And I think that is largely due to, Bonita, you may agree, largely due to the benefits of people being able to take part in this program from the comfort of their home, their demand of their busy life schedules, and seeing that the results of just being as beneficial of taking part in person as virtually, that the demand has increased for virtual programs. So obviously we're going to go where the demand is.
Absolutely,
yeah.
It's to do with the nature of the course, though, I think, too, Leah.
Yeah.
You think in relation to and nature, like when you're supporting somebody who is experiencing depression or bipolar disorder, there's often that piece of, I couldn't take time away, particularly if you live with them, so people would find the logistics of being away for long periods of time maybe that little bit harder, and they know it would be great to do the course, but feel, I actually couldn't do all those hours and be away from the house. So
and
it gives that option.
I think Elaine may be able to talk to this as well, that sometimes taking that first step to attend one of these programs, the feedback has been, well, actually it's a little bit easier in the comfort of my own home. Now also I think it's important that for you, if you want to get out of the house and you need to separate yourself from what's going on at home, sometimes it is nice to be in person as well and take part in the program with people in a room, physically sitting there. So whatever is more suitable for yourself. I have to say, the biggest misconception of this program is that people are going to come onto this program and they're going to walk away with a guidebook of what to do to fix their loved one. That's what they want. And it's not. The program is for you. The program is for you to take care of you in this journey. So Bonita, you may talk through a little bit about what can they expect to get from this program. What are they walking into when they attend week one?
Well, the whole program is a combination really of education and then the experience of the people in the room, and sometimes learning some nuggets from each other and supporting the person in their lives as well, really. But what in relation to, say, the slide that's up there, over the 4 weeks we do have particular topics that we look at. So what happens generally is the group is made up of people, particularly because a lot of it at the moment, as you said, is online. Like it's people from all parts of the country. And sometimes it's people who might be maybe their partner, someone maybe who they're married to, someone who they're related to, or someone who they live with who is maybe experiencing depression or bipolar disorder. And they're putting a huge amount of their day into often actually worrying about them. Often people who are supporting somebody in relation to their mental health, they have to worry quite a lot themselves, you know, and sometimes their own anxiety levels are quite high. So what we start with are the information pieces of what exactly is depression and bipolar disorder. What is it we're talking about? Because sometimes it's
And
something that
Bonita,
people have an awareness of, but they don't exactly understand it the same.
yeah,
Yeah,
sorry to interrupt you, Bonita. I suppose it's a good point that you've made, because people can attend this program who their loved ones may have only been newly diagnosed with depression or bipolar, and
yeah,
they don't have a clear understanding of what that is, you know. And then you may have people who join the program who their loved one has had a diagnosis for many years. So it's important that I suppose that everyone is starting on the same page. You know, everyone in the room has got
yeah,
the same level of understanding. So week one is really important, isn't it? Because it brings everybody up
yeah.
to the same page, really.
Yeah, exactly. And like our understanding of experience and living with depression or bipolar disorder has changed over time too. So if it's somebody in my family who had that diagnosis 20 years ago, I might have understood what we thought that was 20 years ago, but that has evolved and changed as well. And even in relation to treatments, to our understanding, to the cause of the condition and so on, you know, and the presentation sometimes. So even if people have a lot of experience in the room, it's good to start all at once, really. So that's what we start with, kind of what brings you here? What are you hoping to get from the course? And we try to hold on to that to see that if we can kind of thread that through the 4 weeks of what people are wanting from the course, if possible, you know. But the interesting piece, as you said, is a lot of people will come on. Sometimes maybe their loved one is not involved, maybe in other psychoeducation courses. So they're very frustrated often and they're wanting to get some information to be able to tell their loved one maybe what they could or couldn't do. But a lot of this is about what you understand of this condition. How is it impacting on you? And really then working through the weeks of what could help you in building your own coping and capacity around supporting your own loved one or the person who's in your life. So then we learn a little bit of, as you said, the CBT pieces in week 2. Because what can happen is you just feel like you don't know where to go and what to be doing, you know. But your own coping lowers, which causes actually an impact often on your own well-being, really, and how you're coping yourself. And then we look at things like greatest worries that people have. I mean, Elaine, you'll be able to talk about all of this far more from your own experience of it, but the burden that people often carry can be quite great, and the impact it's having obviously on other parts of their life. Then we look at things like stress and burnout. A lot of the time, like, you know, loved ones are burnt out. They're not even aware they are, but because they're so worn out, they feel bad that they haven't got the energy really with their loved ones. So this is really all about what is it? How are you doing? And if you're okay, your ability to be there for your loved one is a lot easier. But if you're finding how you are coping is quite stressful, it's really hard to be able to be there for them, you know?
That analogy, Bonita, that we always use about the airplane. You know, you got to put your own oxygen
Yeah,
mask on first before you can put anybody else's oxygen mask,
yeah,
you know. And that week 2, you touched on there the learning the coping mechanisms. So I mean, that's where the CBT comes in, and that's where we're giving the tools, isn't it? That's where the tools come
yeah,
into place of, you know, learning how to cope. Because quite
yeah,
often, as you talked about burnout, quite often we have people contacting where saying, you know, I am supporting a loved one, but now I actually I'm trying to figure out the signs and symptoms of anxiety, depression, overwhelm myself, because in
yeah.
turn I haven't been taking care of myself. And I think maybe now I'm going through a really tough time and I'm going through low mood as a byproduct of supporting their loved one.
Yeah, yeah, because it does impact, particularly if someone you're in a relationship with, it is going to impact how you're doing. You're right. So sometimes it is around boundaries, around self-care for you each week. There's an opportunity at the end of each week to identify, you know, what's your takeaway for the week. So you build up actually your own individualized care plan. And that's something that you can kind of take away with a checking in of how you are to keep yourself well first, because exactly that's it. It's the
Yeah.
oxygen mask, isn't it?
And Bonita, in week 3, when we talk about the effective, supportive communication piece, you know, that's the bit that we do, I suppose, also give you tools to communicate with your loved one. So while we say this
Yeah.
program is for you and yourself, obviously it's going to benefit you to have those communication tools. But in turn, that's the kind of week that's going to help you communicate with your loved one in a more effective manner, you know?
Yeah, and it's
So
both of those things, isn't it? Because it's how you communicate with your loved one, because people will often say, what I don't want to say the wrong thing, or I say something and upsets them. and they're annoyed at me for how I've said it. So we do look at, how you could maybe take on some skills around how you communicate with your loved one. But I think also the other part of that is how you communicate with other people in your life around getting support. Because a really overriding piece that comes out in the course often is how isolating it is for family members, and the group would share that a lot really throughout the 4 weeks, the bit of, I now someone else here actually knows what this is like for me, and part of that is then even in your life, who could you communicate with to get ongoing support? Because if any of us is supporting someone in our lives who are struggling, like we also need to be able to chat to someone about how we're doing, so that communication I think goes both ways. It's how you receive it for you too.
Elaine, did you find being in a room with people in similar situations as yourself, stripping back all the content of the program, that must have been very comforting in itself, just having people who are in the same situation as you?
It's incredible, Leah. I think you keep all of this stuff to yourself because you don't want to let somebody else down in the real world. So to be able, it's like the air in a balloon, to be able to come into a space and to let it all out, and that it was the right thing to do, and the support. It just, I can't find words to describe what that feels like. It's all very fine if you're going through something yourself that you can talk about it, but when you feel that you're giving away a confidence of someone else, you hold all of that inside yourself. So this space is just unbelievable to alleviate that.
And Elaine, you might talk through, as much as you're comfortable to, of what led you to come to the Relatives and Friends program, and what were your expectations of the program?
Yeah, I suppose by nature I'm a bit of a fixer. That's what I like to do. But sometimes when there's a problem outside of yourself, it's not something that's within your gift to fix. And it took me a long time to accept that this wasn't within my powers. So yeah, a family member was suffering very badly from postnatal depression. And it was very difficult to watch, and the impact then on their partner and obviously then on the baby, it was extremely difficult to watch. And as you mentioned, I had been on the life skills program. So whilst I could do a certain amount for myself, I couldn't actually change that situation. That was what it was, and I found that very difficult to accept. So it took a long time for me to sign up to the program, if I'm honest. But I can't say how much of a difference it made. Just that, as I say, all I could describe it as the air in the balloon, just being able to breathe again. It was really very helpful.
And what did you find after taking part in the program, Elaine? And we're touching on week, and week 4, you walk away with that personal support action plan. And you learn about the value of self-care, which you probably would have touched on as well in the life skills program. What did you take away from the Relatives and Friends program? What was the key benefits for you?
I suppose, again, similar to the life skills program in terms of meeting like-minded people, and then people, as you mentioned, that are in different places on their journey. So I was very early on in my journey, really, because it was kind of something that was thrust on me. So by being with people who are further on in their journey, they had probably a lot more tips that I could take from their situation. Was really important to me. And then the self-care piece, when you're working when you're around people that are really struggling, you really struggle to take time for yourself, because you keep thinking, what if I do this? What's going to be the impact of that? But realizing that, you can kind of only be as happy as the saddest person in the room. So, if you can't kind of find that space, it just becomes like a melting pot, and it's just kind of feeding the situation. So creating that space for yourself, and that self-care is actually, it's not an indulgence, it's a necessity. I found that really, really very helpful.
Yeah, Bonita, you must have that feedback quite often for participants.
Absolutely.
Self-care.
Yeah, even the fact that they have found the time of the 4 weeks of the course, when they would have maybe not gifted that to themselves at all. If they even did have any space and times, I'm sure Elaine, they would fill it with, should I be doing something? Is there anything more I can be doing for the other person?
Yeah.
But that feeling of, wow, well, if you've made these 4 weeks, look at how it feels. As you said, that the change in how I feel after the 4 weeks. What small little bit of that, I think sometimes self-care is kicked around a bit like a cosmetics ad or something nowadays, but it's around the little small things often. The analogy of the bucket, and as you fill the leak, the drops go in, and over time you do have a bucket. It just doesn't have to be huge amounts, but it's the little bits of taking care. Yeah,
Bonita and
yeah.
Elaine, I'm sure there's many people who are listening today who may have questions directly for any of us. So please do feel to write your questions through, and we will answer as many as we can coming to the end. So you can type them in at any moment, and we will get through as many as we can. Elaine, any challenges in attending the program?
Not from a logistics point of view, but definitely I grappled with the guilt week by week. Is this the right thing to do? But all I can say is that was probably more of a challenge at the start. But then as I saw how using the tools of the program, the way I was able to look after myself, I was able to better deal with the situation. So whilst I went in with certain preconceptions and guilt around, maybe exposing someone else's information, over time, I realized the benefits of that. And indeed, talking to the person about going to the program.
I was just going to ask, did you share with your loved one that you were attending the program?
I did.
But quite often, there's a mix, isn't there, Bonita? Some people do share and some people don't share with their loved one, but they're attending the program.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, that's up to individual people to make that decision. But I think at the same time, if you feel you would like to share that, I think it's important to have some understanding of what the course is like of what you're sharing, because the person might feel, is this going to be all about me? You're going to be talking about me? Exactly as you said, Elaine, how much is, but it's not actually about you sharing. It's more, I am in this situation in life. I'm really concerned about someone else and I'm struggling to know what's the best for me and for them. So it is kind of general in that regard then. Would that be fair, Elaine, in that it's not a lot about that person?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think over the course of the 4 weeks, the person began to see the benefits and actually was nearly more interested in me going to the program as to what the outputs of that was, because I became more relaxed in myself. When you're supporting someone like that, you can feel very tense. So when they saw that I was more relaxed in myself, I was probably a much better support as a result of the program.
Yeah, and Elaine, it's understandable they'd be worried.
Of course they would, yeah. Nobody
likes wouldn't you? Yeah. So you need to know that's not what it's about. It's about how you are in supporting them, not actually about them.
Yeah. And I think they like the idea that you've actually taken the time to try and understand their situation, to see it from their perspective, and not necessarily fix it, but accept it and work with it. I think that's a really important thing to do.
And I think participants, it's important that they are aware as well that they can share as much or as little about their own situation as they wish. Some people just like to come and be involved in the program and be a participant, but be a participant in a more silent manner, and that's also absolutely fine. Everything that we discuss or any scenarios that we go through, they're all very I should say that they're very typical, practical scenarios that we go through. We're not asking anybody to use their own personal experience to put into any exercises or group work, and people get involved or they don't get involved. And that's something I suppose that logistically that I should mention, that when we are running the program virtually, we do ask that everybody has their cameras on. It's really important that is a condition of the program. And I appreciate that people wish sometimes to remain anonymous, and there's ways to do that by changing your name and letting the office know that, excuse me, that I'm going to join on as, Stephen, but I'm going to, my real name is John, and that's okay as long as we know beforehand. But it's really important to keep everybody safe. And everybody who says they're going to be on are who is behind the camera. So that's why we have the policy of cameras on.
It feels more natural too, doesn't it, as well, Leah? I know it's about safety, but it feels natural. There's a question there about
communication. Yeah.
It's okay just to mention there's a question there.
Just picking up on that piece, Leah, there where you said, you're free to share as much or as little as you want. To be honest, I would have been one, because it was very much thrust on me. It wasn't something I've been dealing with for a long period of time. So I would have been one of those people that would have planned really not, I'd not necessarily be a spectator to this, but I'd be on the fringes. But it's amazing how when you're with like-minded people and when you're with people that maybe are further on in their journey, and when they share with you, how much easier it is to open up, and it's so helpful when you can. But that really just depends. I was lucky. I felt lucky that I was able to.
And Elaine, there's a question come through from someone who is saying they'd be interested, like yourselves, in both programs, the Life Skills program and the Relatives and Friends program, and that can be a quite common situation people are in. And I suppose the one piece of advice I would give is to not take part in 2 of them at the same time. I would suggest that you pick one and you complete one program and then complete the next program. We do run them again after summer as well. And the reason is that they are, while we don't give you homework to take away, there's a lot of information that you're going to be learning each week. And taking on 2 programs at one time may be just too much for anybody to deal with at the same time. So I would say give yourself the space to take on one program. And really only you can decide what the best program is for you at this time based on your own current circumstances. You can, if you wish, feel free to ring the Aware line, and you can give more information about what it is that you're hoping to get out of a program, and we may be able to point you in the right direction of which is right for you at this time. But will be very individual to yourself of which one that would be suitable for you at the time.
And I totally agree with you, Leah, in terms of doing one program at a time. To me, the homework is, in inverted commas, is key. It's kind of the difference between attending a lecture and attending a workshop, and just being able to apply the skills that you learn in the group and make them real for yourself. And in fairness, the facilitator was really encouraging each week to hear how we got on between weeks, so it gives you the opportunity to really consolidate the skills that you're learning.
Yeah, thanks, Elaine. Something else I wanted to mention again, just as I am reminded of all these with the questions, is it is a free program, but we do ask that you have you pay a fully refundable deposit, so €30 or €10. And that is just to be certain that those who really want to part in the program get a place in the program. You're probably more likely to be committed to it if you have to enter in those card details online to book your place. But please don't let that be a barrier, or don't let anything be a barrier to attending the program. If there's anything you're uncertain about, if you're not sure that you can make all week, that you want to talk through, that I attend one of the sessions in week 1 and another session in week 2, I would just say always get in touch with info at Aware, and we would try to support you in making the right decision and what to do in attending the program. Registration's open at the moment. It's on the website at aware.ie. There's more information about the program and all of our programs as well under the educational program piece on aware.ie. You will also receive a recording of this within 24 hours. And we ask that, feel free to share it with anybody in your life that you think may be interested in taking part in the program. Quite often we have couples or brothers and sisters or siblings attending the program together, and that's absolutely fine. Sometimes we have a loved one taking part in a relatives and friends program while their loved one is taking part in the life skills program. So they're both doing this journey together, and they come back and use that as a connection piece as well of how are you getting on with your course, and how are you getting on with your course. And Bonita delivers a number of the programs at Aware, and you probably find that, Bonita, that people say, oh, my loved one's actually taking part in the life skills program while I'm taking part in relatives and friends.
Yeah, which is a lovely piece, because there's the communication in between with each other then about how's it going. It's like anything, isn't it? If you're doing anything new and doing any course, that you've someone to share it and chat it with, and vice versa is useful. When you were describing there that sometimes, particularly in relatives and friends, you often might get 2 people from the one family or the one friend group who is supporting this other friend. It is wonderful for them, because not only then do they have the support in the group, the content of the group, but then they also have each other. Ideally, it's best if they're on 2 separate devices rather than sitting sharing the screen if it is virtual. Now, if that's all people have, that's fine too, if they need to be on the one screen. But because sometimes we might go into smaller groups and have chats and feed things back, because exactly as you said, Elaine, like it's not a lecture, it's a workshop. So we're all doing things together. So just practically, sometimes that's easier. But there is a big, strong communication. Not only are you doing something for yourself, but as you said, Elaine, imagine to think that there's someone who might care about you enough to do the course in trying to support you as well. It's very affirming all around, really, then, isn't it?
Really is how you look at things, isn't it?
Yeah.
So you look at it that way, and you mightn't look at it that way at the start, because you're afraid you're letting them down, or you're afraid you're betraying a confidence. But I think over time everyone benefits.
Big piece of feedback we receive quite often is, we want more, we want it longer, we want to connect. Having that connection has been wonderful. So we do actually have a relatives and friends here support and self-care group. So participants will be sent an invite after they take part in the program. And currently anybody can join that program, but quite often they like to do the 4 weeks first and then they go on to take part in the self-care and support group. And that is the peer-to-peer support. So it's not an educational program, but it's a nice continuation on to have that connection with people in similar situations, not the same, but in similar situations as yourself. So that information is also available under the support services on the Aware website. I'm keen that we're coming to time, so I just want to check if anybody has any further questions before we wrap up. You can type them through. And if you do think later on today, you know, I didn't get a chance to ask what I wanted to ask, or, oh, I totally forgot about that question, feel free to contact Aware, contact info at Aware, send us an email, give us a call, and we will do our best to answer any questions. So thank you very much, Bonita and Elaine, for joining me today. And I hope that you all enjoyed it.
Bye now, take care.
Bye. Bye.
Bye-bye.